So let's go back to the amendments of the federal Constitution. Are you able to categorize or find patterns in the kinds of amendments that have been passed?
Yeah, I think they're often undernoticed, but they are there. The first 10 amendments, the so-called Bill of Rights, were really part of the original deal by which the Constitution got ratified. The anti-federalists who were opposed to the Constitution feared that the new federal government that was being created was given too much power and was going to become like King George in Great Britain. It was remote, it was out of touch, and it was going to become tyrannical. So in a lot of states, the Constitution may not have been ratified unless there was a promise made to follow up ratification with a Bill of Rights patterned after the Bill of Rights that existed in many state constitutions that identified particular areas that the federal government could not invade, like freedom of the press or privacy in one's effects or one's home. So the first 10 amendments were really not amendments so much as a part of the pre-existing deal. And it turns out the 27th Amendment, the one most recently ratified in the 1990s, that was also part of the original Bill of Rights package. It just took 200 years to finally get over the top and have 3/4 of the state ratify it. So those are 11 of the 27. So let's then put those to one side. Of the remaining 16, the 13th and 14th and the 15th, for that matter, are the Reconstruction Amendments that took place after the Civil War, a truly extraordinary moment in American history and a very extraordinary process by which those amendments became part of the law of the land. So I think those are exceptional. So now we're down to, what do we say, 13 or so? And two of those, the 18th Amendment, which prohibited consumption of alcohol, and the 21st Amendment, which repeals the 18th Amendment, those are more or less a wash. The 21st Amendment does a few things besides just repeal the 18th. But now we're down to, a dozen or so amendments. And if you look at those ordinary amendments over the last 200 years, almost all of them deal with what I would call election perfection. That is the process of making American democracy broader and more functional. So the 12th Amendment irons out a wrinkle in the presidential election process and allows people to vote for a president and a vice president separately among the Electoral College. We already mentioned the 14th Amendment, which deals with who's a citizen and who gets the right to vote to some extent. The 15th extended the right to vote to African American men. The 17th moved from so-called legislative election of U.S. senators to direct election, so that now we all vote for the U.S. Senate. The 19th extended suffrage to women. The 20th and 22nd and 25th deal with various aspects of presidential election mechanics, including the extension of presidential election rights to members of the District of Columbia. We have an amendment limiting the president to 2 elected terms. And then the 24th and 26th Amendments extend voting rights to 18-year-olds, younger Americans, and poor people by eliminating the poll tax. And then the 25th Amendment irons out some wrinkles in presidential succession. So you look at all of these, and 9 or 10 of them deal with making democracy function better.
So let's go back to the Reconstruction Amendments, particularly the 13th and 14th Amendments. Given the way they have been interpreted, especially the 14th Amendment, is it fair to say that they created something like a second constitution? And if that is a fair thing to say, can you explain?
I think it is fair because getting rid of slavery was a huge thing. Embodying a principle of racial equality is a huge thing. And beyond that, the 14th Amendment really applies all of the Bill of Rights provisions that we take for granted to the state and local governments. And so virtually every case that the Supreme Court decides involving the First Amendment, freedom of speech or religion, or the Fourth Amendment, freedom of privacy, almost all of them involve the 14th Amendment because almost all of them involve state or local governments as opposed to the federal government. And none of that would have been possible but for the Reconstruction Amendments.